He is Ron Rivera, former NFL head coach, won a Super Bowl as a linebacker for the Bears, and was on the call last night. Westwood One Radio, NFL analyst, the Rams and the Niners. Coach, great to have you back on. How would you sum up what happened to the Niners last night?
Well, I think what's really happened to the Niners is they're losing the battle of attrition. You go back and look at all the injuries that they've had to sustain. They honestly are a shell of who they were last season. They really are. I mean, what they've tried to do in terms of, win football games with a limited roster, credit to them for trying, credit for the coaches staff doing the best they could. But what you've also saw is you've seen the Rams getting healthy at the right time. And I think that's one of the really big keys for this football team is the Rams are playing good, solid football, especially on the offensive side. Defense is starting to come together. Got a good young group of guys that are really contributing on the defensive side. And the young coordinator's done some pretty neat things as far as Chris Shula was concerned last night. I thought he matched Kyle pretty well.
How dangerous are the Rams if they get into the playoffs?
I think it'd be very dangerous because I think they're young enough to not know with just enough veteran leadership that's been there before, especially with Matthew Stafford. I think that's what makes them dangerous. Plus, I think Sean McVay is a heck of a football coach.
Would you pay Brock Purdy the going rate for a quarterback?
Oh, I'd be a little bit concerned with it. He's a solid quarterback. He does some really good things. He really is, to me, in my estimation, a game manager. And by that, I mean he's a guy that as long as he protects the ball, takes care of the football, and takes what's there for him, he'll be very, very efficient. And he does have the ability to make plays when you need him to. Okay, and that's one of the things that I really like about him. I thought last night he pressed a little bit. I thought he did. I thought he tried to be too pinpoint accurate instead of just cutting the ball loose a couple times. He underthrew a couple of balls that could have been caught for big plays. It's one of those things that when you don't have all your tools, all your weapons, you feel like you've got to make all the plays.
The Niners window closing or closed?
Oh, I think I really just think, the hard part for them is they've gone to 3 straight NFC championships. It's been 3 very long years for them. And I just think it's caught up to them a little bit. I think as far as being retooled for next season, and that's what they're looking at. You got to start looking ahead. You really do. You got to look at how are we going to get this corrected? How are we going to rebuild this? What's going to take to get these guys back on the football field for the most part. When you look at the guys that they just didn't have this year available.
When did you realize something was up with De'Vondre Campbell when he was walking off the field?
When he was walking off the field, I just tried to figure out, okay, wait a minute. And it didn't dawn on me that he hadn't played yet. And he had been their starter, and I think he's their second leading tackler for the year. And I think that was a really tough pill to swallow because, for the most part, you do the things you did, you have the year that you had, and they just put Dre back in there. And I think that really got to him a little bit.
What would you do if you were coaching him in the moment?
Well, in the moment, if I'd seen him start walking up as a coach, I'd have called him over. I'd have talked to him before he left.
But if he says he doesn't want to go in, which I think Kyle said that he told him to go in for Dre, and then he says he didn't want to play.
Well, then there's obviously an issue. I didn't hear that part. But, yeah, I'd have an issue like that right now. I mean, to me, that's conduct detrimental. You're going to have to sit down and have a really long discussion with him. It's one of those things that you got to understand in this game, the way this game's played, you got to do what's best for the team. And at that point, they just thought that was what was best for the team.
But I wonder, is this a must-cut situation if you're the head coach? Like, do you have to send a message? I mean, your season's over almost.
You suspend them. Just suspend them.
Okay.
Because, again, at the end of the day and kind of looking at where they are, yeah, you can send a message by cutting him. You can also send a message by suspending him for the rest of the season. But at the end of the day, you can still get value for him. He's a good player. He's shown that he's capable. Suspend him and trade him.
He's Ron Rivera, former NFL head coach, and was on the call last night, Westwood One Radio NFL analyst. If I gave you the Lions or the field in the NFC, who would you take?
I'd still take the Lions. I really would. They're a big physical football team. I think if there is one potential weakness that I see the Rams have right now, it is their run defense. I think that's a little bit of a soft spot for them. They're still learning, still growing. There's a bunch of young guys, and that's what it is. I love the mentality right now that the Rams have. I mean, it's solid, it's stout, it's built around Sean, but you can't deny what Dan Campbell has done. And it's kind of interesting that he went for it on 4th down, and did it send a message to everybody else? I think that that's one of the big things that you sit there and you look at it. When all they had to do was kick the field goal and then play defense, he went to kill it, to take the knife and twist it. That's pretty much what he did.
Well, the thing I would be concerned about when you say that they're vulnerable to the run is you have Saquon Barkley with the Eagles, and you got Josh Jacobs with Green Bay. And chances are you're going to be seeing one of those teams, both of those teams. If I gave you the Kansas City Chiefs or the rest of the field in the AFC.
Oh, I'm still going with the Chiefs. I really am. And the reason I am, more than anything else, is in spite of everything they've gone through this year, they still find a way to win for the most part. The other reason, more so than anything else, is home field advantage. As long as it goes through Kansas City, I'm sticking with Kansas City. Now, if Buffalo had kept pace with them, and somehow Buffalo had ended up with home field advantage, I would go with Buffalo. I think home field advantage in the AFC is going to be very, very huge.
How do you, if you were going to explain to somebody who had never seen Patrick Mahomes play, how would you describe that?
He's slippery. He has a little bit of wiggle, and he has the ability to make something out of nothing. He really does. And I think that when you watch him do these things, you say, how did he do? What was? And it's always to me about he understands where things are, where people are. And that, I think, is one of his superpowers as a quarterback, is that when you understand and know where people are supposed to be, if you're in trouble, you can always get to that point. And I do think some of the things that Andy designs always has that out for him somewhere. It's somebody that's curling on the backside that's coming back to the quarterback, okay? When quarterback's looking to his right, that X receiver is running a comeback, and as soon as Patrick gets in trouble, he just keeps coming back to Patrick to present that target.
Do you coach somebody like that less?
No, I think you coach somebody like that more in terms of information. You don't tell them, hey, do this or this, but you say, hey, this, just always understand that if you're in trouble, this is where this guy is. If you're always in trouble, you can look for the check down. You can look for your tight end. Those are the things I think that you coach more of in terms of, hey, these are the things that you do if this happens. These are the things you do if that happens. And it's interesting to watch because with Patrick, you see that. You see him go through his progression, seeing that certain things are happening, and then he turns and goes away from everything else.
Is there a quarterback that he reminds you of?
Wow. Tom Brady had a little bit of that, but Tom didn't have his mobility, but he had that ability to get to where he needed to get and throw the ball there. That's I think is really terrific. Joe Montana is another guy that was under pressure. He was just cool and calm. He was Joe Cool. He really was. I mean, you see these iconic quarterbacks who just in the playoffs seem to be the guy that you want on your team in a 2-minute drill to give you a chance to win.
Yeah, there's something about it there, but there's things that aren't teachable, not coachable. Yeah. Like they just have something. I don't know what that is, but the great ones seem to have whatever that DNA is.
It's funny. I've heard Tom Brady talk, and when you listen to him talk, it's all about winning. It's all about being prepared to win. And that's what I think it is about their preparation, is always put them in position to be successful. And that's some of the things that you hear about Patrick Mahomes, is the way he prepares. You listen to when people talk about how Joe Montana used to be prepared. Listening and watching some of the things that Troy Aikman did about always being prepared. Those are the things that I think really separate him, is not just what they do on the football field, but what they do before they get on the football field. Well, those are people that I think are highly successful.
What was your reaction to Bill Belichick going to North Carolina?
On one hand, I think it's brilliant. I was on Good Morning Football the other day, and that had come up, and it just come across the wire that he was in negotiations. And I thought, man, that's brilliant. And everybody goes, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, think about this. With the direction college football is headed, and I don't know if you saw this, some report that there's some billionaires are talking about buying into college football teams. Well, if that's what's going to happen, you're looking at the creation of what potentially could be truly the minor leagues to the NFL. You get enough of these billionaires that want to come in, and let's say you get 32 of them, they buy 32 teams. Now, all of a sudden, what do you have? You have a mini NFL. You've got 2 conferences. You've got 4 divisions in each one of those conferences. You set it up just like that. There's your feeder program to the NFL. And Bill Belichick's getting in on the top floor. Apparently, I'm seeing on the bottom floor and working his way up. Apparently, in my opinion, he's working with somebody else. Somebody else has talked to him about doing that potentially. And again, I'm just guessing, but I think it was brilliant. I really do. I think it's a new challenge for him. I mean, he's conquered it pretty much everything you can in the NFL except for the total wins record. But for the most part, when you win as many Super Bowls as you had, have the success you've had, why not try something different? Why not do something a little bit that isn't expected?
Would you do it? You're 10 years younger.
I personally, if the right situation came up, I probably would. But I'd still have something to prove right now in the NFL. So if the opportunity to go back and do something in the NFL, I think I would do that first.
Good to talk to you, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Good talking, Dan. Thank you.
That's Ron Rivera, former NFL head coach, now working for Westwood One Radio as an NFL analyst.